From Srila Prabhupada, volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. So is that two worlds? Is that the spiritual world and the material world, or the East and the West? Is it? This is chapter entitled I've Done My Part. The meaning of Vrindavan is a sentiment. Srila Prabhupada agreed. In New York, if I die, you will have to entomb me on the roof, he joked grimly. There's no room. If I die, as long as I die among you, you are all Vaikuntha men. I had a dream that Vaikuntha men came to take me. They were all white men with shaven heads. Your countrymen cannot believe how you have changed. So Prabhupada said that they should consult an astrologer to see whether it was auspicious for him to travel and whether he would be cured and how long he would live. I was born in the evening at 4 p.m, said Srila Prabhupada. It was Nandotsava. You can consult an old Panjika to see the date. It was a Tuesday. I'm prepared to go west. Tamal Krishna then quoted from Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verse 37, where Krishna tells Arjuna to fight. Either you'll die and achieve the heavenly planets, or conquer and enjoy the earthly kingdom. Srila Prabhupada said the verse was appropriate. Throughout the night and the next day, he considered the travelling proposal and mentioned to his other servants, Tamal is arranging a big party. I was praying to Krishna, what is this slow death? Prabhupada told Tamal Krishna. Then he quoted that verse, at least my disciples will know I came at the risk of my life. They are the future hope. I must enthuse them. This is a very apt thing for us all to consider. They are Krishna's, they are the future hope. I must enthuse them. This is our duty. Krishna ordered Arjuna, and I am Arjuna's servant. I am not so limited to think that this is my country. Everything is Krishna's. Why should I limit Krishna? So Prabhupada is referring to doesn't have to die in India. Tamal Krishna gave encouragement. When you get there with so many devotees who are giving their lives for spreading Krishna consciousness and assisting you, it will really be enthusing, and you won't have to speak so much. It's your presence. You're seeing the devotees and them seeing you, so in that sense it won't be exhausting. It's a good climate now. August in London is a very good time. Prabhupada turned to Upendra and said, his words are making me feel different. Just hearing, I become enthusiastic. Srila Prabhupada said, Tamal Krishna, by going west, I know you will recover. May Krishna fulfill your words, said Srila Prabhupada. He spent the rest of that afternoon hearing Chaitanya's Caritamrta readings from various devotees. At one point, he began to express great bliss and said, read Chaitanya's Caritamrta always to me. These 3 books. There is no comparison in the world. I may boast like this. I am fortunate to be able to present these books throughout the world, and people are accepting them even blindly. After a day had passed, Srila Prabhupada considered the travel proposal more seriously and mentioned some of its defects. He said that wherever he went, his physical condition would go with him. But here you have been translating lately, said Tamal Krishna. Who says I shall never again translate? Prabhupada countered. Every action has some relaxation and then activity again. Prabhupada said that according to allopathic medicine, the only hope for him was to enter a hospital and undergo intensive medical treatment. According to Ayurvedic medicine, however, there were specific medicines. As Prabhupada sat on his balcony speaking with his secretary, he wore sunglasses. He would wear them even late in the day or in a darkened room. To his disciples, this was another source of worry, that he appeared to be having problems seeing. Such things made the prospects of travelling to the west seem doubtful. Why couldn't he just stay in Vrindavan? Some of the devotees reasoned. But everything was arranged for his convenience. The devotees had sent messages to 3 astrologers, and all the reports returned that same afternoon. Some of the reports offered absurd remedies without knowledge of Srila Prabhupada's position, but all of them agreed at one point, the next 2 months will be the most difficult of Prabhupada's life, and travelling should be avoided. One astrologer recommended Srila Prabhupada wear a blue sapphire. So it is not hopeless, Srila Prabhupada said, after hearing all the reports. At least for the next 5 weeks, keep me very carefully, for the time being, no travel. Secure this blue sapphire and chant Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So it was interesting that he said, and chant Hare Krishna. He didn't just say, get me the blue sapphire. Actually, Sorry Prabhu, Prabhupada's personal servant, remarked on his health. Prabhupada taking care of his health. He said that devotees would make so many endeavours to take care of Prabhupada's health, and he would humour them for a little while, but then he wouldn't keep it up. He said he was not a very good patient. With the allopathic medicine, he said it was medicine of demons. With the homeopathy, he said it was coloured water. And with Ayurveda, he said nobody knows how to do it nowadays. So in this way, he said that Prabhupada avoided taking medicine, sometimes for a day or two. He said there were certain things he would take regularly, but we shouldn't imitate that. In the Nectar of Devotion, it mentions that a pure devotee is callous to his body, but that's because he is fully aware he's not that body. And we shouldn't imitate that. If we imitate that, then our body will get sick and won't be able to perform our service, which means won't be able to make progress in Krishna consciousness. So this body is actually a great convenience for us to be a devotee. We should look after it. If someone gives you a car and you think, I'm not going to put oil in it, I won't put water in it, you just won't put air in the tyres because I'm so renounced, then how long will the car last? But Prabhupada's shown a different example here. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrta, Madhya Lila, Chapter 18, entitled The Lord's Visit to Sri Vrindavan, Text 100. Tabe Tanre Kahe Prabhu Chapada Maria Tabe Tanre Kahe Prabhu Chapada Maria Murkira Vakye Murkha Haila Pandita Hana Murkere Vakye Murkha Haile Pandita Hana. Saying, you are a learned scholar, but you have become a fool, being influenced by the statements of other fools. The Prabhupada's purport. Maya is so strong that even a person like Balabatra Bhattacharya, who was constantly staying with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was influenced by the words of fools. He wanted to see Krishna directly by going to Kaliyadaha, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, being the original spiritual master, did not allow his servant to fall into such foolishness. He therefore chastised him, slapping him just to bring him to a real sense of Krishna consciousness. Om Gyanatamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmilitam Yena Tasman Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Lagate Grimya Kripatamam Vande Shri Grim Dintaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiv Sadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. When Balabatra Bhattacharya asked to see Krishna at Kaliyadaha, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu mercifully slapped him, saying, "You are a learned scholar, but you have become a fool, being influenced by the statements of other fools." So it's interesting, the word mercifully slapped him here. He didn't just slap him, it was merciful. You might think, oh, that's a bit strong. He asked a question, he got slapped for it. How would you see that? Anybody?
You would feel very fortunate.
You would feel very fortunate, you'd feel purified. It's interesting because people place mundane limitations on Krishna. It's like if we read Krishna book, we see that Krishna fulfills the reasons why he comes. So Paritarnaya sadhunam vinashaya chaduskutam. Krishna appears to deliver the devotees and to annihilate the miscreants. So even in Krishna book, we see that Krishna is killing some demons, and someone might think, "Oh, why is God killing people?" But actually, there's no difference. When Krishna does something, it's all auspicious. One gets liberated. So the devotee would think, and even if we look back and we see the pastime of Jai and Vijay at the gates of Vaikuntha, they made some offence against the four Kumaras, and then the four Kumaras cursed them. And then Lord Vishnu says, "Well, I can't take away the curse of my devotees. You've offended them. They've cursed you. You have to accept this curse." But he said, "You could take birth 7 times as my devotees." Is it 7 or 5? 7. Or 3 times as my enemies. And they thought, okay, let's be enemies of the Lord for 3 times so we can get back to Vaikuntha quicker. So they weren't seeing it in terms of good or bad. They were thinking in absolute terms, like, okay, the Lord's not got any objection. He's not saying, "Oh, don't take birth as my enemies, whatever you do," because it's all part of the Lord's pastimes. And so they were quite happy to engage in that pastime. And for them, it was considered when Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsingadev, he was actually experiencing great bliss. So when the Lord mercifully slapped the Balabatra Bhattacharya, and he was feeling great bliss, it wasn't like, what do you do that for? I'm going to report you. Call the police on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He just slapped me. So he got great purification. This is great mercy, and this is why the word is mercifully slapped him. And this is a very interesting verse, because if you know the rest of the story, basically what was happening is that there was some kind of sensationalism going on that Krishna appeared in Vrindavan again. Now this was 500 years ago. Krishna had appeared 5,000 years ago, but people were saying, "Oh, Krishna's appeared in the Yamuna and he's dancing on the heads of Kaliya." And every night we're going there and you can just imagine the whole kerfuffle about it and all the rumours and the gossip and the sensationalistic stuff. It must have been in like the Vrindavan evening times. Krishna appears in Vrindavan again. But Lordchitanya was having none of it, because there was no scheduled appearance for Krishna to come to Vrindavan. It was scheduled that he'd appeared 5,000 years ago, not now. So he's like, "Why are you being such a nonsense?" Just like Arjuna, he was given so many reasons to Krishna, and first thing Krishna says to him was, "You're speaking like a learned man. Asochanam vasochastvam pragya vadam shabashasya gatasam chanana shochantu panditaha." You're speaking like a learned man, but you're actually talking like a fool. You're posing to be learned, but you're talking like a fool, because you're not even thinking that a learned man knows that we're not this body. You're mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. You've been sentimental. So Krishna chastised him, and Krishna, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the guise of a devotee, he also chastised Balabatra Bhattacharya, saying, you're supposed to be a pandit, you're supposed to be a greatly learned person, but you're talking like a fool, you're getting caught up in this sensationalistic nonsense, just because, and it turns out what it was, is that some fisherman was going out into the Yamuna at night with a boat and a torch, and he was catching loads of fish. So they were mistaking the boat to be Kalia, and the torch to be the jewel in Kalia serpent's head. And so they had this, from a distance, this is what they were making it out to be. So really, a good lesson from this is Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. If we think we have some great realization, or that Krishna appeared to us in some kind of unusual form, and we go to the spiritual master, and the spiritual master says, no, that's not Krishna, then we have to have enough faith in the spiritual master that we take his word. Not that we argue with the spiritual master. No, I say in Krishna, you're wrong. Then such an attitude, Krishna's never going to reveal himself, because he reveals himself through his pure devotee. Krishna doesn't take direct service. He accepts service which is recommended by his devotee, the spiritual master. So if someone gives us some service to do, we think, nah, I'd rather go and do this, so I'm just going to do that instead. And it's not authorized, so it's not related to Krishna. It's just some activity in the material world that may have some bearing in Krishna consciousness, but it's not authorized activities. Therefore, the lessons of Bhagavad Gita and the lesson here is actually to do our duty which is prescribed. So there's one instance back in the 19th century. There was Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Many people, he was a very learned scholar and a great devotee, and he's a very strong devotee. He didn't stand for nonsense in the name of so-called spiritual knowledge. He was very clear about it, because his viewpoint was that if people give if they give something in the guise of knowledge, then it's cheating, it's misleading people. So he was very compassionate in the sense that he would never say or do anything which would mislead anybody, and he would never stand for anyone else misleading people, because he understood the value of the spirit soul trying to get out of the material world. So there was one person came to meet him, and he'd met his disciples, and this guy's followers had explained how this man was such a great devotee of Lord Ram. He's always chanting Ram, 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 Ram. He should be chanting Hare Krishna, actually, but he was chanting Ram. Ram could have been in there with the Maha Mantra. So anyway, he had a reputation for being a great devotee of Lord Ram, and once again there was a lot of sensation around him. And so the message came to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, this person would like to meet with you, would you like to meet with him? And he says, just ask him one question first. He says, is he a devotee of Lord Ram directly or indirectly? And they went and asked him, and he says, oh, directly. He says, okay, I don't want to see him. Because nobody is a servant of the Lord directly. Everybody always wants to serve the Lord's devotee. Because you can just imagine, if you're going to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you don't want to be just going there and speculate and fumble. You want to find out how to serve that person properly. Even if you get some local VIP, we want to find out something about the person so that when they come, we can relate to them, we can learn the proper etiquette, things like that. What to speak of if you're going to meet Krishna. You wouldn't just stumble in there and make a fool of yourself. You'd want to, if you took it seriously that you were going to meet the Supreme Lord, you'd be finding out how to act, what to say, what to do. In fact, you probably feel more, a true devotee would feel more comfortable not to say anything and just to stand behind the spiritual master, feeling the shelter of the spiritual master and feeling very fortunate that he's getting the chance to be anywhere near Krishna. So in this way, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati showed us a very good lesson that if we want to go to Krishna, then we have to go through Krishna's devotee, because that devotee shows us how to approach Krishna. We can't just speculate and manufacture our own way of approaching the Supreme Lord. Maybe if we have no knowledge at all, we might have to speculate if we're trying to find our way. But then when the path is available to us and we realise this is the path to God, then it's very important that we stay within the footsteps of those who have traversed that path before us, because spiritual life is it's a very risky thing, very dangerous. There's many allurements, many distractions. Just like if you're climbing a mountain and there's snowfall on the mountain, and you see that on your way, sometimes when you go up a mountain, there's no snow, and you get to the top, and then it starts snowing, and you can't find the path back. But if you see someone at the bottom of the mountain, and you see footsteps leading from where you are to where they are, and you think, okay, let me just follow wherever their footprints are. You see sometimes the footprints are that deep, and you put your foot there, and then there, and then there, all the way down. You think, well, this person made it down, so let me just put my feet where that person was. So this is, and if you think, well, I'll just make my own way down, no problem. You don't know what's under your feet. It's very dangerous, very risky. So the spiritual master, he is showing us step by step how we can go back to Krishna safely. We don't have to make any new steps of our own. We don't have to venture off the path. The path is there. Some people say it's about the journey, but if the journey is going to take a long, long time, so say for example, somebody wants to go to Aberdeen, and Jabba says, I want to go to Aberdeen, but the bus is not here till tomorrow, but there's a bus for London, can I get that one? Say, well, you can go to London and get a bus to Aberdeen, but it's a long way around. So he gets on the bus to London, gets to London, doesn't see the Aberdeen bus, but sees one for Budapest. So he decides to go on that bus. And then about 3 weeks later, he finds himself back in Glasgow to get the bus for Aberdeen. Then you can say, oh, yeah, it was all about the journey. But his reason for going there is probably past by now. So the journey's only good, if we can take the lessons from the journey and pass on to others, so they don't hang around in this material world too long. It's about the destination. So there's this saying, Yatamat Tatapat, which means, anybody know what it means?
All paths lead to the same place.
All paths lead to the same place, yeah. All paths lead to the same goal. So if I say to John, can you pop up and get me a such and such volume of Chaitanya Caritamrta from the ashram? You say, yeah, no problem, I'm just going to go around the back way. Ultimately we'll get there anyways. He goes round the back way, goes right round the village, and then comes up the hill and then goes to the thing, and then by the time he comes back, class is finished. So we can't say all paths lead to the same goal. Or say you're out in the city, and sometimes drunken people, they mess around with the signposts, don't they? They move them around this way, or they take them away. So you get to a crossroads, and you don't know which way to go. You think, oh, well, I'll just go anyway, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get to, it's maybe a 1 in 4 chance that you go in the right direction if you're at a crossroads. But spiritual life is not really so much about chance. We don't want to be a chancer in spiritual life. Gambling is not recommended. So therefore it's important that we're authorised in what we're doing. And it's not so difficult to be authorised. You simply just have to follow Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So for example, some years ago, there was this hullabaloo going on about the end of the world, 2012, according to the Mayan calendar. So nobody knew anything about the Mayan calendar until somebody brought this up. Then all of a sudden, that becomes like the authority above everything and anything. So someone said to me, yeah, the world's going to end in such and such. So I put it on my calendar, end of the world, such and such a date. And I was arguing, well, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, it's not the case, because Kali Yuga is going to last for 432,000 years, of which 5,000 have passed. We've got another 427,000 years before any kind of annihilation is going to take place, where the next age of Satya Yuga will come back. So I think I'll take my authority from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So of course the day came, the world never ended, and we called and said, "You still there?" And so how many conspiracy theories do we have to believe? You know, people have been saying the end is nigh for the last 2,000 years. How many people have died in that last 2,000 years? So of course, we're not going to live forever in these bodies. And the first lesson Krishna's teaching us in Bhagavad Gita is, you're not the body, the body's temporary, the body's money, it can be gone today or tomorrow. But we're not going to live in absolute fear of like, oh, I don't want to leave the house in case of an accident. And then you think, well, even if I stay in the house, I better switch the electric off in case I get a shock, switch the water off in case I drown. You know, if you analyse it, the material world is danger at every step, padam padam yad vi padam. But for someone who's absorbed in Krishna consciousness, they're aware of the fragility of this material body in this material world. But they're not afraid because they're absorbed in Krishna consciousness. So if we're afraid, it just means that actually we're not Krishna conscious enough. And therefore we have to increase our attention to our hearing and chanting and our service and our relationships with devotees, our worship of the deity, our service. Everything we're doing is for the pleasure of the spiritual master and the deities. It's not separated from that. Vitaraga bhaya krodha, being freed from attachment, fear and anger, being fully absorbed in me. Many, many persons in the past became purified of knowledge of me, and thus attained transcendental love for me. Although the devotees are very much aware of the temporary situation of this material body, this material world, they're not absorbed in fear of that. They're absorbed in Krishna's name, and Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's service. So therefore, we don't get involved in so many conspiracy theories, because the biggest conspiracy is Maya is trying to keep us distracted from serving Krishna, distracted from our japa. We chant for a couple of hours in the morning, and has anyone ever experienced that japa period is over before they even realised that they chanted at all? We just went on to automatic. We're going, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. We're just making some kind of noise. We might even be chanting the names, but our mind is not there. Our mind is somewhere else. So we're not getting the best benefit of that. Therefore, we always have to be bringing the mind back wherever it wanders. You know, if we're chanting japa, if we're doing deity worship, like when we're doing deity worship, then we chant this verse, Naham vipro naha nacha narapati napu vaishno siddhara naham varni nacha griyapati navanasto itirva kintu proja kila paranamritabir gopi bhartu padakamalyor dasa dasa dasa. So before we start puja, we chant this amongst the other verses. And does anybody know the meaning of this verse? The gopi bhartu padakamalyor dasa dasa dasa.
I'm not a sannyasi or Balabatra or
Sanya.
Arjuna. I'm just a 7 to the 7 of the 7 to the gopis.
Yeah, I'm not a Sudra, Vaishya, what do you call it? Kshatriya. Huh?
Brahmana, Kshatriya.
Yeah, so basically what it is here, that prayer is so that we may have some temporary identity. When we're not serving the Lord, we have some other identity in the Varnashram system. We may consider ourselves a Brahmin or a Brahmachari or a Grihastha or whatever. But when we go on to serve the deity, that we don't identify with any of these things. I'm none of these things. I'm a servant of the servant of the servant of the gopis of Vrindavan. So that way, when we come to the Lord, we're bringing our consciousness into forgetting all your troubles, forget what you're relating to, and but we're here now to serve the Lord. So in this way, we're actually putting ourselves into the consciousness of I'm the Lord's eternal servant. And this is a verse we can do in whatever service we're doing. It doesn't have to be that we're on the altar, but we see all our services in relation to the Lord because everything belongs to the Lord. Just like Prabhupada was saying, east or west, it doesn't matter. Everything belongs to Krishna. It's not that I have to be in this tract of land because this belongs to Krishna. So that would indicate that everything else belongs to somebody else. That Krishna has to go knocking on the doors of materialists to get his land back. It always belongs to him. It's just their conception that they think it's theirs. We think something's ours, but it was there before we came along. Maybe it was unmanifest, but somebody manifests it. They think it's theirs to manifest, and then they think it's theirs to sell. We think it's ours to buy, but actually nothing belongs to us. So, of course, this doesn't advocate the hippie philosophy of everything belongs to everybody, therefore I'll just take what I want. We usually find that that's practiced by people who are very lazy and selfish, where it's all one, it's all mine. People who don't want to do anything, to make a living, because our philosophy is the Isavasyan principle that everything belongs to Krishna, but we have our quota, we have our allotted quota, and if your quota is such that you've got karma where a lot of good things will come your way, then that's your quota. It's not that someone else decides to make up some law that now takes it off of you so they can have more. And if your quota is such that your rewards in this life are very meagre, then we accept that. And it's easy to accept that when we can utilize everything in Krishna's service, because Krishna explains, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, that even a poor person can serve Krishna. So whatever we have, we offer it in Krishna's service. So undoubtedly there's many distracting conspiracy theories going on in the world, but we'd use our time better to read Srimad Bhagavatam than to surf the net on the lizards underneath the skins of the royal family or something like that, some nonsense things. Maybe people believe it like that. They're like the queen's got a zip up her back, and if you take the zip, you unzip it, she'll be a lizard. There was one program on television in the 70s, I forget what it's called, but basically this is what it was showing you, that the big people of the world had been taken over, and people were posing as them with these very looking masks, but actually behind closed doors they were taking the masks off, and it was the lizards that were controlling the world. It was just some crazy science fiction program, but then some people tend to believe these things. And if enough people say it, then people believe it. Just like there's this story of the Brahmin, someone was envious of him and he wanted his property, so he conspired with his friends, his envious friends. The Brahmin always made this journey every day, so they conspired to meet him at different stages along the journey and tell him that he'd become a ghost. I can't remember his name. It was such. What's his name? Khan. Yeah, I'm not sure actually, but whatever his name was, he said, such and such, you've become a ghost. And she says, don't talk nonsense. She says, no, you've become a ghost. Everybody knows, that you passed away. What happened to you? Anyway, I have to go to work now, so I'll leave you. So then he went away, and I came to the next person who was going along the path. Ghost, I've become a ghost. Nonsense, look, I can feel myself. And then the other person says, such and such, Mr. Khan, you've become a ghost. So eventually, after a few people met me, believed it, he thought, oh no, I've become a ghost. I can't go back to my house now. And then they just thieved his property. So we can believe it, or else we can go back and we find somebody who we trust, and they'll say, what about this? I heard this, I heard that. And just like Balabatra says, can I go and see Krishna at Kaliagat? And Lordchitanya says, don't talk nonsense. Krishna's not there. You sit down here and chant Hare Krishna, then you'll see Krishna. And this is what he instructed them. So if we have faith in somebody and somebody comes up with, someone comes up with something, we think, oh, that sounds amazing. And we go and speak to a spiritual master, some are devotee that we trust, say, what do you think about this? And he says, load of nonsense. And then they explain to you, why not? Why this is nonsense. Then we have to have faith in that. So therefore, the spiritual master is the one who reveals Krishna. So this is people who want things cheaply. It's called sahajya. They want to make something cheap of Krishna consciousness or spiritual life. And they just want it cheap and easy. And this is Kali Yuga. We all have that to some degree. We want things cheap and easy. We don't want to go to Marks and Spencer's. We want to go to the pound shop. So we may go to the pound shop of some kind of New Age eclectic version, or we may go to some other kind of half-baked philosophy or method of spiritual life. But half-baked means it's not properly baked. If when Javit's in the kitchen making the bread and he says, I've been here long enough, I'm getting out of here. Okay, we'll just say the bread's done. It looks okay on the outside, just turn up a bit, it looks a bit brown on the outside, and just send it out to the prasad room. And everybody's thinking, that is okay, and then you've got to put a knife through it and it's all gooey, it's all sticky. Hey, Java, what's happened? This bread's only half baked. No, it's okay, it's fine. It looks like the picture of the bread on the book. And then everyone say, okay, well, let's try it then. And you get sick, indigestion. This is bogus, you misled us. So this is why we don't want something half-baked, especially if you're putting a lot of effort into it. Just put the rest of the effort into it and get the full-baked thing. And then no spiritual indigestion. So Krishna consciousness, it's not necessarily that, although it's available for everybody, and everybody is eternal spirit soul, part and parcel of Krishna, and everyone can take to it. Manushanam Sahasresu, that out of many people who endeavour for spiritual life, hardly one will come to the truth path, because quite often people become distracted by their own spiritual weakness or their own material desires. So material desires may take shape in the form of some gross sense gratification, or it may take shape in the form of something more subtle. What are the more subtle aspects of material desire?
Name, fame.
Yeah, that's it. Name, fame, distinction, adoration, and gain. So you see, sometimes people can be even very austere, but what they're getting out of it, they're getting a big name out of it. Oh, such and such Swami. I remember because after a great devotee's name, sometimes they give the number 108, which is an auspicious number. And I'd seen this big billboard outside Vrindavan, such and such Swami 1008. And I had to laugh, and I thought, 108 is not good enough for you. You've got to be 1008. And I thought, next year we'll come back and it'll be 10,008. He's the best Swami, 1,000,008. Oh, come on, just how stupid must we be to fall for these things? But people do. And they think, oh, he's 1,008. He must be amazing.
So this one, Shri 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 such and such Mahaswami.
Yeah, the more Shris you put in, the better you are. And it's just like the Pushkar Prabhu used to say, every week there's new incarnations and Swamis coming off the conveyor belt from India. So of course India is a great spiritual wealth of knowledge. And Prabhupada even says that, there are many people who come in the guise of gurus, swamis, or followers of these people, but due to a poor fund of knowledge, they don't know that they're actually being misled. So therefore, Prabhupada gave it very straight. Bhagavad Gita as it is, not Bhagavad Gita as I think it should be, or Bhagavad Gita as, I want you to hear it so I can just extort something out of you. Bhagavad Gita as I see it. So Prabhupada's titled Bhagavad Gita as it is and all of Prabhupada's books, we see that he encouraged us to scrutinizingly study them. You look at each word that he's translated. He's not just given the Sanskrit, or he's not just given the English and who knows where the reference is. He's given the Sanskrit verse and how he's translated each and every individual word. And then he's given the verse and the purport is explaining the whole meaning behind it. So therefore, if you scrutinizingly study, then you will come to that conclusion that Bhakti Yoga is the culmination of all other attempts at self-realization. So it's not to say that other paths, religions, systems have nothing at all, because even in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada mentions that in the Bhagavad Gita you'll find many truths which you'll find in other places also, but you'll find many truths in Bhagavad Gita which you won't find elsewhere. So you might find a little truth here and a little truth there. I once read a book called The Reluctant Messiah by, was it Richard Bach? He did Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And this was when I was about 19 or 20, when I started my search. And it was interesting because, so he was this guy who was basically being like a messiah. And he had one disciple who was inquiring from him. And then he quoted some very profound truth. And he says, "Where's that from?" And he said, "That's from Snoopy the dog." This cartoon character Snoopy. And he says, "What?" He says, "I'll quote the truth wherever I find it." So the truth can be there in so many places, and even devotees shouldn't be so proud that we can't take the truth unless it comes from somebody wearing tilak and a dhoti or sari. If Krishna speaks to us through someone else, if it's relevant, if it stands up to Guru Sadhu and Shastra, that's the thing. It's not that the truth is only Indian, or the truth is only coming from a dhoti or a sari. So if we're sincerely looking for it, then the truth will become apparent to us. But we don't have to make it hard for ourselves by trying to find it in things which are obscure. We find it very clearly in Srila Prabhupada's books. If we take Arjuna's situation, he was bewildered. Caitanya doshopa hatta swabhava prachami tvam dharma samudacheta yat shri shannishitan brihitan meshi shastiham sham shashitam. That's the last line. Tvam prapanam. So he said, "Now I'm confused about my duty. Now I'm confused about my sloka. Now I'm confused about my duty, and I've lost all composure due to majorly weakness." So he says that I'll become bewildered due to my miserly weakness. He wasn't blaming anyone else but his own spiritual weakness due to miserly weakness. So strong materially and spiritually weak. Of course, Arjuna is taking this position. We don't think Arjuna is like that. He was put into this position so that Krishna could speak Bhagavad Gita for us. Arjuna is the eternal associate of the Lord, so the eternal associate is not always in Maya. The Lord's associate, being completely surrendered to the Lord, will even get into Maya if Krishna wants him to do that, because Krishna's got a purpose. So, he was bewildered, and he was asking, now I'm bewildered, what shall I do? What is it that I should do for certain which will benefit me? So because he had become materially exhausted, he had given all his reasons why he didn't want to act in the capacity he was required to act. And he'd given all his reasons, but Krishna said, very nice reasons, but they're all material reasons, they're all mundane reasons. And now that you're my disciple, I will instruct you on the highest truths. So this is Lordchitanya's mercy on Balabatra Bhattacharya was that he didn't allow him to go and become fooled by this illusion that people were thinking they were seeing Krishna. He said, basically, stop this nonsense, sit here and chant with me and we'll see Krishna. So, anyone get any questions? As Hochstepper.
Well, actually, just a quick one then about Balabatra was he was associated with love all the time. Fell for it. So can we see that as the same as we would see Arjuna?
See it.
The same way that we see Arjuna. He was the Lord instructing him. And then when we do the same with Krishna Das, we see that as just the Lord arranging it so that he would be able to instruct him, or would we see that there's a distinction between the two?
Which one was Krishna Das?
He would take him by the Krishna, by the Egyptian. Yeah.
Yeah, on that occasion, it was his weakness. And certainly the Lord, whatever situations the Lord's in, then it becomes a demonstrative lesson for us. So whether you may find that other more deeper scriptures would tell you more esoteric things behind it, but the lesson is always there that we shouldn't take it that it's just because we've got a bead bag in our hand and we've got tilak on our head that Maya can't touch us, because time has shown otherwise. Even great, and that's in the Bhagavatam also, that even great stalwart devotees fall victim to Maya. So therefore we can never think that we're so safe that Maya can't touch us. As soon as we think like that, personally we had one spiritual master who was like that. He was challenging Maya, and senior devotees were thinking, oh no, this is the end. You cannot challenge Maya. You can't become so confident of yourself that you think, I'm not in Maya, everyone else is Maya, I can see that, but I'm not. That means you're probably bigger Maya than the rest of them. Yes.
Also, you were mentioning about chanting, and I just read a point this morning that the reason why we have to be patient is because it takes time to cultivate confidence.
The reason why we have to be patient is what?
Yeah, so it's continue on chanting and everything else, we become more confident of our ability to access the Lord's mercy. But it doesn't come, it's not like, I've been chanting for 5 weeks, so I should be confident by now, but you don't realise that until later on, and you start realising, when he says patient, it means over decades, and being patient is because you could get discouraged or frustrated with the fact that you have so little confidence in the rooms for 12 years and don't have any confidence. And that's when you have to think, maybe I just need to stop being in a hurry. It's not a cheap thing, and there's going to take some time.
Yeah, well, Lordchitanya mentions in the Shikshastakam that I may be broken-hearted by you not being present before me, but you're still my worshipful Lord eternally. So that's, of course, very high realization, but Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati says that don't try to see God, but act in such a way that God will see you. And this is also corroborated in the Nectar of Devotion, where it's mentioned that pure devotional service attracts even Krishna. So we may be trying to see God in some ways, but actually, if we try to please God, that's the better thing than try to see God. Try to see God means we're trying to keep him under our control. We want God to be present before us. We've still got this attitude that we're the one to be served, as opposed to let me act in such a way that Krishna may be pleased. And we think, well, how do I know what Krishna will be pleased with? The spiritual master will tell me, or a department head will tell me, or something like that. So by pleasing Krishna's devotees, then we attract Krishna's attention just as much as Prabhupada gives the example that the son of a wealthy man, he may not need anything from anyone because the wealthy man can give him everything. But if the son's friend, who may be even quite poor, does something to make the son happy, then the wealthy man is very pleased with that person for making his son happy. So that's what the spiritual master, he's trying to qualify so he can say to Krishna, look, here's a nice devotee. Can he enter into your pastimes? He's not going to say that if we're not a nice devotee. There was actually a few occasions where Prabhupada called devotees rascal devotee or demon devotee. So he's still given the chance to become a devotee by putting the word devotee there, but not that everyone who's been initiated or everyone who appears to be a devotee is. Of course, we shouldn't become suspicious. We should be concerned about ourselves, not others. So another interesting point, just before we finish, is that the next verse here, which is interesting, I'll just give you a little prelude to it, is, why would Krishna appear in the age of Kali? Foolish people who are mistaken are simply causing agitation and making a tumult. Do not become mad, simply sit down here and tomorrow night you will go see Krishna. So basically he's saying, don't go that way, that's nonsense, but I'll give you Krishna, I'll take you to Krishna. So if the spiritual master says no to something, it means he's saying yes to something else. He's not saying no just because he wants to keep us subdued or subjugated. He's saying no because he's got something better in mind for us. So here Lordchitanya is saying, no, don't go there, don't be a fool. Remain here, and then we'll actually go and see Krishna. And this is what sometimes Prabhupada is criticised for speaking very strongly. He was known for speaking very strongly, because also he was carrying on that mood of compassion of his spiritual master, is to not allow cheaters to distract people from the real goal of life. And there was that example of this reporter asked Prabhupada what he thought of this Swami and this yogi and this so-called incarnation, and Prabhupada mentioned, he said, oh, he's bogus, and this one's bogus, and that one's another nonsense. And the man was quite surprised, and you could tell by the guy's voice he was actually quite interested, and he says, oh, because my son follows that one. And Prabhupada wasn't sentimental and says, and those who follow them are even more bogus. And the man was actually appreciating it because he could see that Prabhupada wasn't just siding with them all because they were from the same tract of land, but Prabhupada was standing for the truth, Sanatan Dharma. So if someone's coming in the guise of truth, then someone who knows the truth is going to say, that's nonsense. So therefore Prabhupada says that poor fund of knowledge, then you'll get the blind leading the blind. So someone may even think that they're advanced, or some of them know they're not, but they're just purposefully exploiting people. Prabhupada gave the example, oftentimes you say, certain yogis would say, you give me $50 and chant this mantra and you become God. And, cheap God, if it was only 50, huh? Yeah, bargain, pound shop God. So we're interested in the real thing. So the example was given that if you want to get the real jewel, you have to pay the price for it. If you want some cheap bling or some plastic accessory that looks like a jewel, you can get that in the pound shops. Everybody can get that, and you find that the bins are full of them, and the world becomes polluted by all this unnecessary stuff. But it's quality that counts. So not everyone can afford, and what is the price that we pay for the real gem? The real spiritual gem, what is the price?
Full surrender. Full surrender.
Full surrender. In order to do that surrender, what does that require? Chanting the holy name. But I've been chanting for years and nothing's happening.
Chant Shuddhanam, faith in spirituality.
Yeah. So sincerity.
It's a gradual process.
Gradual process. It's gradual. But also I was just hearing Prabhupada was saying that this surrender thing, it can take many, many years or many lifetimes, or it can take a moment. So I think it was Hoax was mentioned earlier on that it's not necessarily a matter of how long you've been doing something, because you could be doing something wrong for a long time and still expecting a different result, isn't it? And then we get disappointed. Therefore, we have to have our ears open to hearing Shravanam Kirtanam. I have to be hearing what next, what am I going to hear which is going to help me take me to the next step. If we're always looking for the next step, if we're thinking that I'm okay, everything's hunky-dory, that'll do, then we're going to be missing out. And we've done so much already to get where we are. Let's go the rest of the way. Yes.
Barbara was saying that we have faith in our lack of faith. And we're saying we need to, he said, when we're praying, we're quite often not really believing it's going to happen. So he said, Krishna Consciousness felt that really, because he says, if you can visualize it happening as you're praying for it, then you really increase your chances of it happening.
It's a good point. We have faith in our lack of faith, and we don't really think it's going to happen. Maybe we don't even want it to happen. But because Krishna has been fulfilled, we find in the Ishopanishad it's mentioned that the Supreme Lord has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. So if your desire is we don't really want it, then Krishna will fulfill that desire anyway. And then we realise, I should have wanted it. I should have wanted pure Krishna consciousness. So if you want to have a life full of doubt, Krishna will give us that. That's what you want, okay. It's your choice. And this is Krishna's love, that he doesn't interfere with our choice. He wants us to come back, having chosen him. You know, it's just like, say you've got a boy and a girl, and they have some relationship, and they fall out, and then the boy goes away, and he goes with some other girl, and he gets tired of that and thinks, maybe the previous one wasn't as bad, so I'll go back to that one. And she's like, well, you don't really want me, it's just you think I'm not as bad as that one, you don't really want me. So is she going to be interested? Because you're just going to give me up as soon as somebody else comes along. So we have to really want Krishna. And to want Krishna, then we have to get to know him, which means hearing about him from those who know him. That's why Guru, Sadhu and Shastra is there. Because we can't say we know Krishna. We've heard about Krishna, and we know of Krishna, and we may know a little bit. But really our concern is that what would my spiritual master want me to do? What is Guru, Sadhu and Shastra saying? How is that saying that I should behave? And then when Krishna sees that we are really endeavouring to align ourselves with this, then Krishna starts to manifest more and more in our lives. Okay, anything else, or should we finish?
A very quick comment was we were talking about the law, about people having lots of money, and there are some people that are earning £100 billion a year. So surely they should know that once you've got $1 billion, you have to.
Yeah. Then you would think that's only by those who are not billionaires. And the law of greed is that you never get enough. As soon as you make $1 million, you think, if I just make $1 million, I'll be happy. You make $1 million and you start to associate in different circles where everyone else is making 10 million. You think, okay, that's the next step. And then, okay, you're successful, but then you're associating with those who are making 100 million, and then 1 billion. And then once you get to the billionaire club, you think, I need to make hundreds of billions. And it's never enough. It's never satisfying. So you're always going to have plans for bigger plans. And then typically what happens is plans for world domination, because they think money is everything, because they're the richest person. They think they've got it's all in their hands, but it's such an illusion that who's going to follow you? Just because you made some money. We bought something from you, but we don't need to listen to you. So sometimes, even in this pandemic, some people have become very, very rich very quick. but they've got no qualification which requires us to listen to them, other than they're making some convenient product. That's all. But because they are so unenlightened themselves, then they think that because they've got more money, they get more say. Because they think, it was Gudruma was telling me once, he says that some people are so poor, all they've got is money. I thought that's really good. So if you feel sometimes that somebody's trying to look down on you because they're richer than you, you can just think, you can feel sorry for them. That's all you've got. If you can't be happy with nothing, you'll never be happy with a million or a billion. And of course someone could say, well, why a billion? Why not a million? If you make more than a million, they should give the rest away. But this is the nature of the material world. There's always greed and envy going on. Okay, we'll just stop there. Strong Guru Ki, Prabhupada Ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Gaur Bhaktavrinda Ki.